I never imagined that a single moment could shatter the foundation of my life. It was a typical Thursday evening when I returned home earlier than usual, hoping to surprise my husband with his favorite takeout. The house was unusually quiet, the kind of silence that feels heavy, almost foreboding. As I stepped into the living room, the sight before me froze me in place. There they were, my husband and my sister, entwined on the couch, oblivious to my presence. Time seemed to stand still as I watched the two people I trusted most betray me in the most unimaginable way. I dropped the food, the containers spilling their contents onto the floor, but neither of them noticed. The sound must have startled them eventually. As they looked up, their faces a mix of shock and guilt. My husband scrambled to his feet, stammering, "This isn't what it looks like." My sister, ever the composed one, simply adjusted her blouse and looked at me with a smirk. "Well, this is awkward," she said, as if this were a minor inconvenience. I couldn't speak. My voice caught in my throat, and tears welled up in my eyes. Without a word, I turned and walked out, the door slamming behind me. The cold night air hit me like a slap, but it was nothing compared to the numbness spreading through my body. I wandered aimlessly, my mind replaying the scene over and over. How long had this been going on? Were there signs I had missed? The questions were endless, each one more painful than the last. Eventually, I found myself at a park bench, the distant sounds of the city providing a backdrop to my turmoil. I sat there for hours, trying to make sense of the betrayal. The anger began to build, slowly replacing the initial shock. I realized that I couldn't let them get away with this. They had destroyed my world, and they needed to face the consequences. I returned home in the early hours of the morning. The house was silent, and I assumed they had both left. I went to our bedroom, the bed still unmade from the night before. I sat on the edge, staring at the floor, formulating a plan. If they thought they could betray me and walk away unscathed, they were sorely mistaken. Over the next few days, I maintained a facade of normalcy. I went to work, smiled at colleagues, and even exchanged pleasantries with neighbors. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. I began gathering information, piecing together the extent of their affair. Every text message, every suspicious outing, every lie, they all formed a tapestry of deceit. I discovered that their affair had been ongoing for months, possibly even a year. The realization was a dagger to the heart, but it also steeled my resolve. I wasn't going to confront them immediately. That would be too easy. No, I wanted them to feel the weight of their actions, to experience the same pain they had inflicted upon me. Daily Telegraph. I started documenting everything: photos, messages, receipts. I created a timeline of their deceit, each entry fueling my determination. I also began to distance myself emotionally, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. I knew that when the time came, I needed to be composed, to have the upper hand. One evening, I received a message from my sister, asking to meet. She claimed she wanted to explain, to apologize. I agreed, seeing it as an opportunity to gather more information. We met at a cafe, and she launched into a monologue about how it just happened, how she never meant to hurt me. I listened, nodding occasionally, all the while recording the conversation on my phone. My husband, on the other hand, avoided me. He stayed out late, claiming work obligations, and when he was home, he barely spoke. The distance between us grew, but I didn't mind. It gave me more time to plan. I began to consult with a lawyer, exploring my options. I wanted to ensure that when I made my move, it would be decisive and irreversible. I also started to confide in close friends, building a support network. Their encouragement bolstered my confidence, reinforcing my belief that I deserved better. As the days turned into weeks, I felt a transformation within myself. The pain was still there, but it was now accompanied by a sense of empowerment. I was no longer the victim. I was taking control of my narrative. I decided that the confrontation would take place on our wedding anniversary. It was poetic in a way. The day that once symbolized our union would now mark its end. I planned a dinner, inviting both my husband and sister under the guise of reconciliation. They accepted, perhaps thinking that I was ready to forgive. Little did they know, I had something entirely different in mind. The evening of our anniversary arrived, and I prepared meticulously. The dining table was elegantly set, soft music played in the background, and a roast was slowly cooking in the oven. Everything looked serene on the surface. But inside, I was anything but calm. My husband walked in first, visibly surprised by the setup. He glanced around suspiciously, as if trying to gauge my mood. "What's all this?" he asked. I smiled and replied, "Just dinner. After all, it's our anniversary." He raised an eyebrow but didn't question further. Moments later, my sister arrived, equally confused. She wore a sleek black dress and carried a small bouquet of flowers. "This is unexpected," she said, placing the flowers on the table. I simply nodded, gesturing for them to sit. We ate in near silence, the only sounds being the clinking of cutlery and the low hum of music. I could see both of them growing uncomfortable under the weight of unspoken tension. And then, halfway through the meal, I stood up. "I have a gift for both of you," I said, walking toward a drawer in the cabinet. From it, I pulled out 2 neatly sealed envelopes and handed one to each of them. They opened them slowly, their faces gradually draining of color. Inside were photos of them together, screenshots of their texts, a printed transcript of my conversation with my sister at the cafe. My husband stared at the papers, then at me. "You've been spying on us," he said, trying to sound offended. I let out a cold laugh.
"No, darling.
I've been protecting myself. There's a difference." My sister tried to speak, her voice faltering. "Listen, I know this looks bad, but nothing," I interrupted. "You're my sister. And you still chose to stab me in the back. Did you even hesitate?" She looked away, guilt creeping into her eyes. My husband stood abruptly. "So what now? You want a divorce?"
Fine.
"Just say it." "I already did," I replied, pulling out a second document, divorce papers. "I just needed your signature. Tonight." He looked stunned. I could see it hadn't occurred to him that I'd be the one to end things so cleanly, so powerfully. For once, I had the upper hand, and I wasn't going to waste it. "You're going to regret this," he muttered under his breath. I stepped closer, meeting his eyes. "No," I whispered. "You are."
He signed.
Reluctantly, angrily, and then stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. My sister sat still, the envelope clutched in her lap. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way," she said softly. "But you let it happen," I replied. "You made a choice." She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled back. "You need to go. We're done here." She stood slowly, her eyes glistening with tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "So am I said, "sorry I ever trusted either of you." When the door shut behind her, I exhaled deeply. It was over. The confrontation, the heartbreak, the lies, it was all laid bare and left behind. The house felt empty, but not in a sorrowful way. It felt cleansed. In the days that followed, I began the process of rebuilding. I redecorated the house, clearing out every reminder of the life I once shared with my husband. I blocked their numbers, deleted old photos, and even took a short trip out of town to reset emotionally. The support from my friends was overwhelming. They rallied around me, offering comfort, encouragement, and most importantly, distraction. I signed up for yoga, started painting again, and began rediscovering the version of myself I had put aside for years. And slowly, I realized something profound. The betrayal, while painful, had freed me. I had been living in a web of lies, held back by a relationship that no longer served me. Now I had the chance to rebuild, not just my life, but my identity. My husband tried reaching out through mutual friends, apparently remorseful and seeking another chance. I refused. Some things cannot be undone. My sister moved out of town shortly after. We haven't spoken since that night. I don't know if she regrets it, but it doesn't matter anymore. My healing is not dependent on her remorse. One afternoon, as I was sipping coffee at a local cafe, I caught my reflection in the window. There was a strength in my eyes I hadn't seen in years. Not bitterness, not pain, just quiet resilience. I had faced my worst fear, betrayal by the two people I loved most, and survived. More than survived, I had risen from it. And I knew, in that moment, that my story wasn't over. It was just beginning. In the weeks that followed, a strange stillness settled over my life. Not silence, not emptiness, just stillness. For the first time in a long time, I could hear my own thoughts. I wasn't living in reaction to someone else's lies or covering emotional wounds with false smiles. I was simply breathing again. Every morning, I woke up without dread. There was no need to check a phone for suspicious messages. No worrying about late nights or unexplained absences. Just a quiet morning sun, the sound of birds, and a cup of warm tea. It was unfamiliar, but it was peaceful. And I welcomed it. The healing didn't happen overnight. There were days when I cried, when the betrayal would sneak up on me like a cold wind and wrap around my chest, squeezing my breath away. But I allowed myself to feel it. I didn't bottle it up like I used to. I gave myself permission to mourn, not just the relationship, but the years I lost being lied to. One afternoon, I sat on the floor of my bedroom with a large box of old photos, letters, and mementos. I looked through each one, not with bitterness, but with clarity. Each item was part of a chapter, one that was now closed. I placed them in a bag and drove to a quiet field. There I burned them. The fire danced like it understood what I was doing, releasing, not destroying, letting go of what was never truly mine to keep. I watched the smoke rise, carrying away the weight of years. After that, something shifted inside me. I started volunteering at a local shelter. Giving back to others reminded me that pain doesn't isolate us, it connects us. Everyone has a story, and mine, though filled with betrayal, could one day offer hope to someone else. I enrolled in a pottery class. Something about molding clay, shaping it with my own hands, reminded me that I had power, that I could still create beauty from brokenness. Slowly, my circle began to change. The people I once entertained out of politeness faded away. In their place came souls who listened without judgment and spoke with honesty. Real connections. Genuine laughter. One day, I walked into a bookstore and picked up a journal. On the cover were the words, "Still I rise." I smiled. Because yes, I was still rising. With every breath. With every step. That night, I wrote in the journal for the first time. They broke my heart, but they didn't break my spirit. I'm still here. Still breathing. Still choosing me. I had no idea how powerful that choice would be. In choosing myself, I learned to set boundaries. To say no without guilt. To protect my peace. To no longer explain my worth to people who were committed to misunderstanding it. And then, the unexpected happened. I was at an art exhibition, standing in front of a canvas that was smeared with bold strokes of red and gold. The colors felt like my journey, fiery and divine. A man beside me commented, "It looks like someone rose from the ashes." I turned and smiled. "Exactly what I thought," I said. We began talking. His name was Ayan. His energy was calm, grounded, with a hint of something deeply spiritual. He didn't ask me invasive questions. He didn't try to impress me. He just listened. And when he spoke, it was with purpose, not performance. We exchanged numbers, not out of obligation, but out of curiosity. Over the next few weeks, we had coffee, shared stories, laughed, and sometimes sat in comfortable silence. He didn't try to fix me, and I didn't try to impress him. There was no rush, no pressure. Just presence. One evening, while walking in a park under a soft drizzle, I told him everything. About the betrayal, the heartbreak, the confrontation, the silence that followed. He didn't flinch. He didn't pity me. Instead, he looked at me and said, "You are fire. And you didn't burn down. You lit your own way out." Those words stayed with me, because in them, I saw the truth. I hadn't waited for someone to save me. I had saved myself. And now, I wasn't rebuilding for someone else's approval. I was rebuilding for me. Ayan and I didn't jump into love. We stepped into it gently, like people who had both known pain and respected its lessons. Whether our paths remain intertwined forever or not, I know one thing. He came into my life when I was whole again, not when I was looking to be completed. That was the difference. I now walk with my head held high. Not because life is perfect, but because I know I can face the imperfect with grace. I've learned to trust my intuition, to speak my truth, and to never again shrink myself for the comfort of others. The scars I carry aren't signs of weakness. They are proof that I healed, that I stood back up after being shattered, and that I chose peace over revenge, growth over stagnation, and love, real love, over illusion. People sometimes ask me if I'd ever forgive my sister or my ex-husband. I tell them this: forgiveness isn't about letting them back into my life. It's about freeing myself from the burden of their choices. I forgive, not because they deserve it, but because I deserve peace. And now I have it, not in the form of a perfect life, but in quiet mornings, honest relationships, and a heart that no longer fears breaking. I once thought their betrayal would destroy me, but instead it revealed me. If you're listening now, yes, you, the one who thought I'd never recover, the one who laughed behind closed doors thinking you had won, I have something to say. You didn't destroy me.
You freed me.
You thought taking away what was mine would make you feel whole, that stepping on my heart would make you taller. But the truth is, you revealed your emptiness, your need to imitate love, because you had none to give. I gave you love without conditions. I gave you loyalty that asked for nothing but honesty in return. And you took that love, wrapped it in deceit, and served it back to me with a smile. Do you remember those fake smiles? Because I do. I remember every moment I questioned my worth, wondering if I was too much or not enough. I remember begging God for clarity. And clarity came. It came like thunder on a quiet night, jolting my soul awake. I see you now, not through the lens of pain or revenge, but through the eyes of truth. And I want you to know, I no longer hate you. I don't need to. Hating you would mean you still have power over me. But you don't. You see, your betrayal was the storm. But I was the seed in the soil. And the storm only made me grow deeper roots. I hope that one day you realize what you lost. Not because I need an apology or want you to come back, but because maybe, just maybe, you'll stop breaking hearts to fill the void in your own. And to my sister, blood doesn't make someone family. Actions do. And your actions made it clear that envy ruled your heart more than love ever did. But still, I pray for you, not because you deserve it, but because I do. I deserve to live without carrying the weight of your bitterness. I deserve to move forward in peace, not in pieces. You may have taken a chapter of my story, but I am the author. And the rest of my book will not be written by your betrayal, but by my bravery. So no, I won't curse you. I won't expose you. I won't chase you with vengeance in my heart. Because your punishment is having to live with the truth. You lost someone who would have never betrayed you. Someone who stood by you, defended you, and loved you deeply. And I gained myself. And that, in the end, is the greatest victory of all.